Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Maritime Deluxe. After a little hiatus I took, still trying to plan everything out and how I want to structure this podcast. And obviously, with school going on, it's kind of tough, but I'm doing my best to get everything out as much as I can. This week, I'm joined by Ben Brown. He is a wheelchair racer from Cambridge, Nova Scotia. Him and I are going to chat a little bit about his training methods, how he got in a wheelchair when he was 18, and a little bit about the Red Wings, because turns out there's another Red Wings fan out there during these times. So take a listen, and I hope you enjoy. Hey.
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. How are you?
Good. Just still adjusting to being in BC.
Yeah. You were saying that when we were chatting through email there. You're going to BC. What's going on over there?
Warm weather training, because as you know, in the Maritimes, it may be spring, but it doesn't seem like it until like either late April. And my first big competition or qualifier for the year is in the middle of May in Switzerland. So I need to be outdoors. And normally I'd be out in Florida, but going to Florida is not an option.
Yeah.
Driving wise.
Yeah. Do you have to quarantine for 2 weeks? Probably.
Nope.
No?
The only thing I can't do is access Athletics Canada / Canadian Olympic training facilities. And I can't be in contact with the other, like close contact with the other athletes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before we get started, can you just introduce yourself a little bit and who you are, where you're from, and all of that jazz?
Can do. All right. Okay. I'm Ben Brown. I am from Cambridge, Nova Scotia, and I compete in the sport of para-athletics. I do the 100 up to the 1500 meter in the T53 category, which means I have full use of my upper body, just minimal use of my trunk and leg muscle, and no use of my leg muscles.
Mm-hmm. And I saw before you got into racing, you were actually into wheelchair basketball.
Yep, I did a little bit of wheelchair basketball. I played for 4 seasons, and during that time I tried sledge hockey, still raced ATVs. And then during that time I was also wheelchair racing. And then I just made the decision to stick with wheelchair racing since it was the one that suited my personality and the one I seem to enjoy the most.
Mm-hmm. And so you actually went to the Canada Games for wheelchair basketball before you got into racing. Is that correct?
Nope.
No?
I was starting like training for Canada Games wheelchair basketball first, but then we had spots for track for wheelchair racers for the first time in Team Nova Scotia, and I was offered to go. So I did that in 2009 in Charlottetown, and then less than 2 years later did basketball, and then 2 years later did Sherbrooke, and then 4 years later did Winnipeg, where I won 3 silver medals.
Right. What got you into wheelchair racing?
Well, that's a really funny story, actually. I was at a specialist appointment in Halifax, and I parked my truck at the QE2 parking lot because where I had to go to the professional center, accessible parking in Robie Street is not happening. So I wanted to get something to eat, but didn't want to wheel back to my truck and then try to find somewhere to eat. So I went to the closest place I could wheel that had a ramp, and that was Starbucks, which is pretty much, that ramp is not really accessible. It's like a hill that I would train up now. I was having, at that point, Starbucks wasn't doing sandwiches or anything like that. So I had a brownie and a iced Frappuccino, because again, like no hot chocolate, no English toffees, anything like that. Because if I'm going to drink stuff, I probably consumed more Timmy's in the last 2 years than I have for a long time. But if I'm going to get something hot, it's either hot chocolate or French vanilla. But because I'm not a coffee drinker, and I was wearing a wheelchair basketball T-shirt, and my coach that I have now, that I've been with since then, came up to me and asked me if I knew his prof, and I was like, yeah. And he asked if I was interested in doing a fitness test for his practicum, and I was like, yeah. Is that one of those tests where you go until you quit dire puke. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, all right, sign me up. And after back and forth emails, we finally did that in March of 2009. After the test, he's like, you have some potential for wheelchair racing. And I wasn't sure about doing it at first because that's what the diagnosing doctor for my accident suggested I do. And I didn't like being told what to do. And, but I gave it a shot in May of 2009. The chair was too small, so I could barely get in. And then I didn't realize that you're not to grab the rings like you would a day chair or a basketball chair. You're to punch the wheels, essentially. And I didn't realize you're not supposed to sit straight up, which I did. Fell flat on my back, and well, I fell in love with it right then and there. And about a month later, I did my first track meet in Oromoncto Gage Town. And I finally realized that, like, even though I was still racing ATVs with my buddies, I was playing wheelchair basketball, did a little bit of sledge hockey, but I finally found a sport that I just felt completely like myself as far as like without a ATV again. So I did Canada Games that summer, like I say, and our goal was to stay in the lane, and that's what we achieved. And I just decided to stick with it slowly as I went on.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by when you say like grab the wheels, or sorry, grab the ring? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, when you watch someone push their day chair, like a basketball, tennis, what have you, their hand is almost around the push ring of the chair.
Okay.
Of the wheel. Whereas a wheel racing chair, you're wearing gloves that are like almost like boxer's mitt, or if you're using what we call hard gloves, they're almost like a prosthetic fist. And you're constant to start the momentum and to maintain the momentum. You're hitting that ring with all your force, like a butterfly stroke in swimming.
Okay. Interesting. So there's a difference between racing and the way you would play basketball.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that in your position. I mean, there's people that sit like they would in a day chair, but there's very few and far between that can sit like that and go fast. Like you're actually kneeling, you're pretty aerodynamic. That and a basketball, rugby, tennis, those kind of chairs, they're designed to turn on a dime. Our racing chairs are designed for the road turns to an extent, like no hairpins, and 400-meter outdoor tracks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you have your steering set up, to go around the curves of a track. You just got to adjust it. And then, and how you do that is by hitting the compensator triangle and playing with the adjuster bolts. And once you get it dialed, you're set. And of course, you have the handlebar again to let you turn left and right in an emergency on the track, and also to turn left and right on the road. Plus, you have your front brake, which you don't slam on unless it's absolutely necessary because you'll flatten a tire. You feather it like you would a clutch on a car or ATV, dirt bike, motorcycle.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so you're really into ATVs and stuff, and your accident that's how it happened. I read. Can you take me through that day and what that day was like?
Well, I did like an ops course race with the ATV I crashed on like the night before in Lawrencetown at the Annapolis Valley Exhibition, and I was going to this track in Hants County to get prepared to go to Fredericton potentially. Like I was looking for a ride to Fredericton because the pickup truck I had at the time, I'd take it as far as Moncton, like Salisbury, Moncton, but I wouldn't go any further because after that you're really questioning if it's going to get you not so much to where you're going, but it's going to get you home kind of thing. It was, right. I mean, it was an old truck, whatever, right? And I was feeling out the track, second lap in. During the first lap, I skipped the jump because I realized like how small it was and how big of a run on. I knew this was going to cause a crash. So the next time I went around, I went into it easy, hit it, just came up short, got thrown over the handlebars. And usually when this happens, when you get bucked off your machine doesn't quite usually goes one way and you go the other. Well, this time it followed me and it lawn darted on my back. And then I was in about a state of shock for about 2 minutes. Then I could feel my neck. So I knew my neck wasn't broken, but I could feel my back and I knew my back was broken. I was like, okay, yep, season's done. And then, the pain really kicked in. I was rolling around trying to alleviate the pain while I'm waiting for, the ambulance to arrive. And half an hour later, I couldn't feel my legs. I went to, once the ambulance got there, they took me to Windsor. I still thought I could feel my legs, like move them, but that was not the case. They transported me to Halifax because it was serious. I had to call, my dad was already waiting for me, but I had to call my mom. And that was kind of the worst part of it, having to call my mom about that. And then that night, after a bunch of tests and being asked 100 times if I wore a helmet or not, and they said, well, people have motocross action all the time, don't wear helmets. I'm like, no, I said, on a track, you are made to wear your gear. Like, you can't enter the track without gear. So they diagnosed me as I was T5. So that's chest down, complete paraplegic. I asked if I was going to ride and race again. And they told me, you know, like I said, go, why don't you try wheelchair racing? And I was like, of course, not comprehending. And I was defiant. So I'll just leave it at that. And that was kind of like, and I was still like, again, you're on a bunch of pain meds. You're not comprehending that you're not going to walk in. And a week after I had my surgery to fuse my spine and everything back together. And I thought that was supposed to fix everything. And of course, that wasn't reality hit. I was in a slight depression for about 24 hours. Diagnosed, the surgeon gave me the information to ride ATVs again. And that pretty much just changed everything and reset the motivation. And then like, I realized within 3 weeks, the walking 100% was not going to happen. And I just, all right, this is what's been dealt with me. I'm just going to roll with it and go with it. And initially I was supposed to be in rehab for 6 months. Took me 2.5. Like after the first week, because the first week I complained about all the pain and stuff. And the physio I had said, if you want to get back on your ATV and you want to get back to living your life, you got to, you know, deal with this stuff. So it's kind of how once I came with that approach, then, you know, mindset changed.
Right. And how old were you when this happened?
3 weeks away from my 19th birthday. So I wasn't doing the stereotypical Canadian 19th birthday celebration. When I turned 19, I was in the rehab, having Subway, Taco Bell, eating ice cream cake, and watching movies with friends and family versus, you know, going to the bar. So,
Right.
Which worked out because I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. And honestly, I did the bar scene, you know, for the first couple of years once I got out of rehab, but then I realized it's not for me. And also I woke up one morning with a wicked hangover, and that was kind of, I said, nope, that was kind of my convincer that, and I can say like I barely drank maybe once a year as far as going out with my friends. Last year I had 3 beers.
Yeah,
So
I've been there.
So I mean, that's kind of the thing is, I guess when I find when I have life lessons that hit me hard, I tend to learn pretty quickly that if I don't like it, don't do it again.
Right. I can't imagine having to call your mother after an accident like that and tell her what's going on. What was her reaction when she got that phone call?
She was upset, but I mean, she was just, you know, it was more like, I can't quite remember. I remember a lot of details, but again, like it's been over 14.5 years. I replayed the day, but it's just like, I'd have to think about it. But I mean, like, you know, my mom, like it was very, for my family, it was, you know, what got my family through it was my attitude of how I accepted it. Right. Like, and just saying, no, I'm not going to let things slow me down. And that's kind of how you know, that's how I am. I'm willing to work with people, and I'm very easygoing, but when it comes to certain things, I can be very stubborn, which is a good thing to have as an athlete mentality. Because if you're not willing to stand up for yourself, you're not going to get anywhere, like in your career. So.
Right. And you said after you went into a little depression because of everything that had happened and the pain you were feeling, how long did it take for you to be able to, I know you said eventually you said that you were going to roll with it, this was your life, but how long did it take for you to get to that point?
From the time I had the crash happen until that moment, I'd say about 3 weeks. Because when I realized I was in rehab and I saw people have it harder than me, I was like, you know what, this is not so bad. I got my full use of my hands and arms. I know what's going on. Yeah, I don't have the best balance. Yeah, I can't walk, but you know, at least I can do things with my friends. I can go to work. I can I can play sports, because I wasn't thinking Paralympics at that point. I just wanted to, you know, get back to sports. And I said, I'll eventually be able to ride an ATV and race it. And that was kind of one of the things, that was one of the motivating factors. Like there was people saying, oh, you'll be able to ride one, but you'll never be able to race one again. And I kind of like, I said, no, watch me. And that's kind of how I've also approached life. Is like if someone tells me I'm not capable of doing something, I'll figure out a way to make it work. And that's also, I've had that kind of approach to my training. Like if I'm not going to deny, as far as an athlete goes, before I got injured, I played hockey like most Canadian kids, but I'm flat footed. So skating was not my skill set. And I mean, if you can't really skate that well, hockey is not, going to the show is not going to happen. That's just, let alone making it past house league. So, and softball, I could catch and throw, but I couldn't throw that far. I could run decently, but of course, as I got older and my priorities changed and my diet went to like a stereotypical teenager, eating Ronnie's and Wendy's and whatnot. So I got a little slow, and because if you eat like crap, you're going to perform like crap. It's a very, live by that saying. That again, like I just wasn't super skilled. And then once I realized I got to outwork everybody that I compete with, that's kind of what's helped me with my training. And that's, again, it's that's watch me mindset is what's helped me, with life and with training as well.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you about your training. Obviously it'd be very different from most sports. How is it? How are you able to train for wheelchair racing?
That's a very good question. So we do running events, but we train like cyclists, swimmers, and runners combined. Almost not like a triathlete, but like, so again, we got the butterfly stroke. For me, what works is doing speed first, then ramping up the volume as we're ramping up the intensity. I train normally twice a day, 6 days a week. And on the 6th day, I'll do just one long workout. And on the gym days, I'll typically, unless I'm really close to competition, then I'll train 3 times a day. Cause I find the gym for the most part doesn't wear me out. It's almost like charges me up for the third workout. So again, we do the running different distances, but because in wheelchair racing, in the 800 meters and up, you can draft. So that's where we train sort of like cyclists. And also because we're on wheels, we can do active recovery. Like we keep moving between intervals if, the workout's designed that way. And if the training route allows so. And because depending on your disability, you're only using, in my case, like a quarter to a third of my body's only being used. So I can recover twice as quick. Like, so for example, if I'm doing, what was it? I was doing, like I'll do like 60-60s, like 60 seconds hard, 60 seconds easy, or I'll do a 60-30 or a 90-30, right? Because I can do that. Whereas you wouldn't see someone running go for 90 seconds hard and then only do like a 30-second breather. You don't see that very often. And then same thing, like last year, when the tracks finally opened up in Nova Scotia to use, instead of going on the road that day to do 60-30s, I broke up, did it in 2 sets of 5, 400 200s, and people were watching me do it and they're just, what? And I'm like, yeah. I said, well, I'm on wheels, it's a little bit different. Then again, we can put on way more mileage too, right? So my average workout, not this week so much because I'm trying to find the right route and everything, and definitely the routes in BC are a little more challenging than what they are in Nova Scotia, where I train in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia. But normally I would, like when I tell people I got to go do a half marathon, mind you, that's become my norm for the last 3 or 4 years, whereas a challenging long workout is about 30 kilometers or more. And I'll put in between 30 to 40 kilometers a day. That's quite expected when you start focusing on the 400 and up. And even when I was doing primarily the 100, I was still putting in 120K a week.
Has your training schedule changed at all within the past year? Obviously, with the pandemic happening and everything, how has that affected your day-to-day life?
Well, as far as the training goes, I got very lucky because with my sport, all I had to do other than the isolation when I came home from Alabama was set up a roller at a friend's and train there for 2.5 weeks until the weather was nice. And then I moved that roller to a friend's shed, and because that's our version of a treadmill. And because there was rollers, same like a cyclist that has an indoor trainer, my training never got affected. The only difference was once we knew season was not likely going to happen, we changed our focus. So instead of like in April, we like late March and April, we start getting ready for season. This time we switched to complete fitness endurance. And so I put in like an extra 2,000 kilometers for the year almost. And I did get one track meet in by myself. The gym, as far as weight room was concerned, I already had a small setup already, like when I got home during isolation, but I probably spent about $500 on trial and error stuff because I bought 3 chin-up bars, and the first 2 you had to drill holes in your door frames, which when you rent an apartment, can't do.
Right.
But ironically, someone came up with, I don't think I ever saw this until the pandemic started, was you just literally, it has like rubber ends that grip to your door frame.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of chin-up bar got TRX bands, medicine ball. My coach gave me a bar that had the weights rusted on. Ironically, it was only 65 pounds, but for a bit, that's what I did for floor press, skull crushers. And I would just do all sorts of stuff. And I would, during isolation, I probably, out of the 14 days, I did 10 to 11 lifting weights for an hour and a half at least, just to, stay fit. And then again, still strength trained. Once I was able to get on the track, I started using the track. And once gyms were open, I started using the gym. And the only time I only had to use my home gym a handful of times. As far as like affecting my life, yes, I couldn't really compete, which is a huge part of my life, but I'm used to going training and going home anyways, like other than getting groceries and stuff. And realistically, I'm not going to lie, when it comes to getting groceries, I know we were recommended only go to the grocery store like once every week or once every 2 or twice a week at the most. But as far as meat concerned, yeah, you can put it in the freezer and it'll stay. But for produce, I go through a lot of veggies and fruits. As an athlete, I had to go to the grocery store like every minimum 2 to 3 days because again, I'm consuming that many vegetables because I wanted to keep, avoid them spoiling and that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, as the restrictions got loosened in Nova Scotia, I, started living more and more of my life. I was able to pull off 2 big fundraisers that actually went very well considering the pandemic. I mean, again, and then once we got looser with restrictions, then yeah, I got more social. But I mean, again, my life is pretty much get up, breakfast, shower, get ready for the day, go train, eat, recover, go train again, come home, eat, recover, and watch TV or a movie and call it a night. That's pretty much my day, right? So I mean, the pandemic didn't really affect me too much as that is concerned, because I mean, in the trend of staycation, I was doing that ever since I started competing because I can't afford, when I'm on a 2-week shutdown break, I don't have money to go to another province or another destination. It's pretty much just stay home, hang with friends, eat whatever I want for almost 2 weeks within reason, and then get back to training.
Mm-hmm. What were those 2 fundraisers you said?
One was my annual golf tournament, and that was actually the most successful golf tournament. Part of the reason I think is because no one really got to play golf tournaments. So I got more teams than I usually do. And then I had just right before I left here for BC, I had a fundraising dinner. The difference was instead of in person, it was takeout, and my auction was on Facebook. So, and that did well. Plus, I mean, I was able to pick up a few more sponsors. Again, I'm lit, and I mean, I finally flew, like I say, for the first time in a year. So that was definitely different. The flights weren't long, like super long. It was just the fact I had to wear a mask for the whole flight, other than having a snack. And that was kind of, that made the flights like normally it's 2.5 hours to Toronto. It just made it seem like another 15, 20 minutes because of the wearing the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, like Toronto to Vancouver. Again, but mind you, Vancouver to Victoria was like shorter, was like me going to, I think it was quicker than going to my coach's house to hit the roller.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the kind of the short part. But I mean, like, again, those were kind of the thing. Again, it's just, I'm really happy with the community support I'm still having despite the pandemic. And I mean, we're going to still have a Paralympics. It's just going to be modified. Competitions are, like I said, I have Switzerland in the middle of May, and we'll have some qualifiers here in Canada. I mean, I have a small qualifier here, and not this Saturday, but next Saturday coming. I'm not looking to hit my standards necessarily, but just get some good times, finally get a competition in with some people, and just see what I need to work on going into Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last year, obviously, the Paralympics were obviously canceled in Tokyo. What was your initial reaction when that happened?
Oh, okay. So here's the thing. Like, I was supposed to go to Dubai when this all started, but I got canceled because of the pandemic. But it was
Mhm.
still safe to go to the States, and I was going to go to Alabama at the end of March. So I just went 3 weeks earlier, and a week and a half later, I had to go home. And on the way to the airport, I get an email telling me that Switzerland's canceled. So it's like, oh, great. And I knew Quebec, and also I knew nationals wasn't happening because the day prior, the whole province of Quebec was shut down for sporting events until the end of June, until further notice.
Mhm.
So like, okay, I literally have no qualifiers. Are we going to have a games? And so I got home Thursday night, and then on Sunday night, while I was like, watching Netflix or playing video, whatever I was doing, I get an email letting us know that the government or Canada has pulled out, and 2 days and it was frustrating, but I understood why. I was all behind it. And 2 days later, when I saw the Paralympics was going to be postponed from the pressure from us and Australia and a few other countries, then when I saw that, it was more of a sigh of relief because I didn't want to. I'm very close to making the games, and I didn't want to like miss out on my opportunity just because of just because of that. So again, instead of being upset, I just saw it as another year to build. And honestly, it really worked out. My overall endurance is better, my fitness, my power endurance, my technique. This sport is very technical. It's rare that someone hops in a race chair and takes off like you can in running typically.
Mhm.
Like you have it, especially with the higher gloves, you have to be very precise in your stroke. One miss stroke, and that could be your race or an injury.
Right. Do you have any good stories from your travels? Obviously, you've been some good places around the world. You said Alabama, and I read you went to South America. I think it was. Whereabouts was that?
Lima, Peru for Parapan. But speaking of stories, I got one from last night.
Okay.
This one's good. So the thing about the Victoria Trail system is everything connects. And the problem is I'm finding the signage is not the greatest to tell you when you change trails until you're about 3 to 5 kilometers in. And my friend that I'm going to be training with next week, once I'm over my 6-day period, he told me where to go, and I did. And he said there is a straight stretch there, and this is probably the only straight stretch. And I was doing my warm up. I was like, okay, I'll turn around at some point. And I thought, okay, there's got to be another straight stretch. And so I turned around once I gave up on the idea of doing intervals, and I missed the turn off. Didn't realize it. Went back to where I initially started on Tuesday's workout. Turned around, and I saw this guy, now a new friend, Jeffrey, Steven. Him and his friends just finished their run because I passed him earlier, and I turned around, went in his driveway, and asked him to give me a hand, and he hopped on his bike, and we realized, okay, he took me back to where I did my first turnaround, and he said, okay, I'll go get my truck, just wait here. So I went to the Tim Hortons parking lot and waited, and because there's like 4 or 5 Frifties, which is like BC's version of Sobeys.
Mhm.
We kept guessing and guessing and guessing and guessing. Had to go back to his house to get a jerry can of fuel for his truck because of course I don't take my cell phone with me because there's nowhere to put it. And we finally found it late last night, around 10 o'clock last night, the car, like where I
Okay.
started. So yeah, that was and it was a late night last night because I try to get to sleep now between 10 and 11, and I didn't get to bed till probably after 12:30 or so because
Mhm.
I didn't eat, but I bought some groceries, so I had those. And I was going to get for my meat protein intake. I was going to go to the restaurant here, but the restaurant's closed. And I go on a DoorDash, and there was only 3 choices at this time of night: McDonald's, 7-Eleven, and this food truck. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go with the food truck, and I think it was like a pastrami panini. So out of all, because it was all, again, it was either hot dogs, pizza, sausages, or of course, Big Macs. So I went with the pastrami because it was the healthiest of all the
Yeah.
choices. So that's one funny story for it. You had like again, and also funny enough, also during that time we took a wrong turn, and he pulled out, and we got pulled over by the cops, and we had to talk to the cop, and he didn't have his wallet on him, so because we didn't realize it was going to take us that long. So he had to talk to one cop, and I talked to the other, and that got us out. And of course, when the cops pulled us over, I didn't have my mask on me, and he did. So when the cop was talking to him, he had to wear his mask. And I just did this with my shirt to the other comp just because, and she didn't mind. And once I explained what's going on, I said, like, I'm from Nova Scotia. I just got in Monday night. And I said, I'm not going to lie, I don't know the trail system. I'm learning as I go. I mean, that's kind of the good thing is this week is basically the learning curve of what routes are going to be productive and which ones aren't for my training. And then starting next week, I can have like a full, like the next 5 weeks will be full quality training. So that's kind of, there was that. Lima, I get there the first night in the wheelchair accessible showers. How their hot water regulator worked it was sporadic, and it would go from freezing cold to scalding hot without warning. And I burned my foot, and then 2 days later, or the next day while we were training, or the 2 days later, whatever it was, leaving the track, the drivers are a little bit erratic, just to put it nicely. And this guy thought it was a bright idea to pull up in front of our bus, and I wasn't in the wheelchair seat because there's no wheelchair, like places to park my wheelchair on the bus. And he smashed in this car. I thought it was, and I flew out of my seat, and I thought it was just the driver being erratic. And then of course I was aiming for medals. I was predicted to win gold in the 800 meter, and I finished 5th out of 5, instead of winning. And that kind of demoralized me, but it was a huge learning experience. So again, it was just kind of one of those things, like things added up and up, and I couldn't seem to mentally get over them, but like it was a good learning curve. See here, I've driven to the States total to Florida, Georgia total 5 times. And I say one of the more interesting ones was, I'd say for a good laugh, would have been landing in Quaker Steak. I stopped at Quaker Steak wing place in New Jersey, had wings. Tried to change my fries for a salad, but to get the deal, they wouldn't go for it. I went to do the 3rd hottest wings, but someone decided to have the atomic wings where you had to wear gloves and goggles.
Oh, yes.
And then I left, and I decided to keep going. And I had the coupon book to save money on the hotels, so you didn't have to pay full price, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the closest one on my route home, and that was under reasonable price, was this one place in Connecticut. And I kept hitting construction. Finally got there that night. It was $55 American. And Connecticut, I swear, you gotta be rich to rent a room. Like even with the coupon book, to get a hotel that night, you're still paying over $100 American. So I get there for $55 American. The room itself was accessible, but not the bathroom. I had to crawl to get to the bathroom shower. So I had a shower. Lo and behold, pull up the curtain, cockroach.
Oh, geez.
So I said, yep, this is why it's $55 American.
Yeah, screw that.
And then I left Connecticut that morning at 8 o'clock and got home 11 o'clock, almost midnight that night. So I did not by plan, just the way it worked out. It took me 2.5 days to get home from Warm Springs, Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It normally should take like 3.5. But again, I did some extra driving that I did not plan to do.
Yeah.
As far as racing stories go, Switzerland, me and my coach make this joke because my coach is from Switzerland. Right after I did this 1500 was the first time I went under 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And just to give you a reference, you as a runner will smoke me in the 100 up to the 400. But after that, I'm gone. And my personal best is like faster than the running world record, but it's still like 25 seconds beyond the men's wheelchair record.
Mm-hmm.
And I just finished the 1500. Me and my coach are watching the next heat and going over my race. And we hear boom, boom, like thunder coming out, right? And they're not even black flagging the race. And the announcer starts playing Thunderstruck. And the race still goes on. I go do my cool down. I come back out, and it is absolutely pouring out.
Oh,
so like everybody else had to go in this downpouring rain while mine in the heat after avoided the rain. But just the fact that the Swiss don't cancel races for thunderstorms, I thought that was quite interesting. What else? I'm trying to think of what other good, funny racing stories there would be. Well, not so much funny, but of course, I've made a lot of friends over the years. I did, one was one of my friends who's number one in the world in my classification, Brent Lactose. He also became the first Canadian since Josh Cassidy, who I'm going to be training with while I'm in BC here, to win the London Marathon in 10 years. And well, Brent got me invited to race 100 meter at the London Anniversary Games in 2016, where I was in front of like 30,000 people on live television. That was a really cool feeling. It's probably one of my favorite race moments, just because of the fact that I got, be on live national television in front of 30,000 people. There'd be that. When I won my first national title, I don't know what I enjoyed more, beating the rival, because I never beat him prior, or winning my first national title. It's still, that's always tough to debate, but the way the race played out, like I just happened to hit everything except for the time I wanted. But that's because, again, we're a wheelchair racing track, surface makes a huge difference. And a lot of times our Paralympic, Olympic trials or national championships are on tracks that are not exactly the best for wheelchair racing. So it's not about times, it's more about podium appearances or winning at that point. And that's kind of how you have to track. Sometimes when you have too strong of a tailwind in a sprint, or a crazy headwind, or it's raining, it's no longer about the time, just go out and try to win. Another one would be when I went to go pick up my current race chair at Oita, Japan, to do I did the marathon and got fitted the year before. I went down to a half marathon to be a little more focused on the track. We got typhooned out, but the first day I was there, Ernst Van Dyke, who's won Boston Marathon 10 times, we've become friends. I was about to buy my cappuccino at Starbucks, and he paid for it. And I said to myself, life's good when the 10-time Boston Marathon winner is buying your cappuccino for you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, and the thing about Ernst, if you're to look up Ernst on YouTube, he makes me look short and skinny.
How tall are you?
6'1".
Okay.
But it's mostly in my legs. Whereas Ernst, he doesn't have a spinal cord injury. He's an amputee, so he's only missing part of his leg.
Okay.
Or legs, I should say. And then he's a bit of a muscle baby to begin with. But yeah, no, Ernst has been around our sport for quite a long time and is a very good ambassador. And also, like I said, he's won Boston Marathon 10 times.
Jeez.
And has the second fastest marathon ever at 78 minutes and 4 seconds, I think it is. That was set in 2017 during Boston, because I remember that because I just got driving home from Warm Springs, Georgia for warm weather training, and Boston was that day. And it was 5 degrees to go train outdoors in Nova Scotia, while it's 21 degrees in Boston. I'm like, this is not right.
How did you meet him?
Actually, it was my first OETA, because I don't really do a lot of road racing, like internationally. And that was my first big other than doing Peachtree and Cedartown, that was my first and only marathon. And that was the first time I met him. And I was just like in shock and awe initially, just because, again, he races for Team Honda. He, other than winning gold and I think a Paralympic marathon, but definitely hand cycling and winning Boston Marathon 10 times, here's a guy who, very well known in the sport, and a little starstruck for a couple minutes, but really nice guy. Our network is very small, but we get to know each other, right? So. Okay.
Right. I wanted to ask you about your business. Now, I know you're unable to work because of you're a full-time athlete, and you had started this business where you promote athletes. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I'm selling t-shirts. I'm going through a bit of a business loan just to get more inventory, because I'm pretty much out of shirts, and I'm working on some wheelchair racing parts. But I do want to get into like promoting more and more athletes. It's just I need not just so much the time, I just need the funds to do it. I mean, I'll promote local athletes for free anyways at the moment, because we all need to be heard and people need to see us. I mean, the good thing about hockey players is the hockey network is a huge network, and if you play well, you're seen. But like other sports that are not so known, like especially in wheelchair racing, we're not a super well mainstream sport. So when you see on my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, if I see an opportunity to share something, I'll share it, blow it up, try to get people talking about it. That's the great, and again, like I started the shirts last year, ironically, right before the pandemic. And then I sold quite a few during the summer, and I thought I actually ran out of inventory. And when I went to go pack here for BC, I opened the travel case store, and voila, there was another 12 shirts, or I think it's 12. I sold one. I'll be selling another, at least one or two here while I'm here. And then I'm taking the rest with me to Switzerland, because they're all wheelchair racing shirts. So I think I can sell them while I'm in Switzerland.
Okay, cool.
And then, like I say, I'm just going through a business loan application. I just got to finish one more thing and hopefully get it's a provincial program, hopefully get it. It's not a big loan, but just enough to get things, get the ball rolling again. Cause like I said, I want to work on some wheelchair racing parts to help the sport and help myself financially and kind of go from there. Cause our racing chairs, they've definitely, improved over the last, 3 decades, but maybe it's just from my ATV racing background and being a car racing fan and stuff. OEM stuff, it's great, but there's always ways to make your equipment better, maybe on the durability side or the speed side. So I'm working on it. My product is kind of speed and durability on both sides of the coin. I'm hoping to become a dealer for a North American rep for another parts company, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all a matter of how this loan plays out and what I can do. And again, it's not just because I'm a full-time athlete, that I'm just going to leave it out there. When you have a physical disability or something that's visible, it is very hard to get a meaningful employment in general, especially in the maritime provinces. And I realized I needed to start working for myself over like a little less than a decade ago. And I decided to take business at NSCC. Initially, I was going to get into that sports marketing thing, and we did this entrepreneurship project, and that's when it just switch of gears, mindset. And I've been working on a few things, so hopefully we can, hopefully something can happen. And
Mm-hmm.
I start selling more shirts, start selling racing parts in the next year or two, and then grow from there. Because I also want to sell stuff that's not currently quite on the market, because I don't want to. It's not that I don't like competing with other people. It's just I rather, I feel like as a community, we almost should work together, not against each other,
Mm-hmm.
for the benefit of the sport.
Right. I wanted to ask you something because so I heard about you through my friend Nigel Cornelius, and he told me you were a Red Wings fan. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a little bit about them, because I'm also a Red Wings fan as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. This is probably because I have cable access now, so I don't have cable at home. This is probably the most I've watched professional sports in the last I don't know how many years. I do pay attention. It is frustrating, as you know. We're going through a rebuild. I trust what Stevie's doing. Unfortunately, I'm probably on the same bandwagon that most Red Wings fan is. Fire Blashill, and it's nothing against the guy. He's just not like, and I could be wrong. And this is coming from an athlete's perspective. Some people, they only can coach at a certain level. He won a Calder Cup. Some guys are AHL coaches or junior A, major, junior, what have you coaches, because that's the level where they succeed the most, because that's where they can get their players to buy into what they're doing and their athletes to buy in what they're doing. He just can't seem to do that at the NHL level.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of it is you can't fire him, because certain states like Michigan, they have their COVID protocols for people coming in and out. So if they fire him and hire a new coach, that coach has to possibly isolate for a week or two, and that puts them further behind. So it's better to wait till the season's over with. And the other part is with this taxi, I don't mind you, I'm only getting notifications for Detroit and the Senators and the Flames. Flames are my Canadian team. The reason for the Senators is because of Drake Batherson.
Mm-hmm.
But I find the Red Wings, out of all those 3 teams, are the one team that constantly sends people back and forth to Grand Rapids or the taxi squad. And it's a shame, because you got guys that are sitting in the A that have actually performed better than some of the guys who are my age or slightly older. And mind you, wheelchair sports a little bit different age-wise, but they're on their last leg of their career. So I understand you're paying them, you got to get them on the ice, but they're not performing.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that are being sent down to the A are performing when they get their shot. But hey, we snapped Carolina's winning streak, so that's a good sign. And Larkin's starting to come back the way he is.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Bertuzzi will be back in the lineup. Mantha,
I'm unsure of Mantha.
He's just not performing. Like, he's motivated, but he's just still not that, like, he doesn't seem to have that fire. I don't know if it's because Bertuzzi's not on the ice or if Blashill's not like, or you figure Stevie would hold him accountable, but who knows? I mean, like I said, it's just, I did see like a trade rumor about who we could trade at the deadline. And I think the only reason why we got Mark Stahl initially was to get some draft picks come trade deadline.
Yeah.
Because I know Bobby Ryan, he's performing and he wants to stay here. Gagne's, again, I think he could stay. It's just hard to say because he did perform very well at the start. He's dove himself right into the city of the community efforts and stuff. Do you really want to get rid of a locker room? Because some guys, it's like Dan Cleary. People are upset like the last couple of years that Cleary played because he wasn't like performing like he used to. But the thing was, he was great to have in the locker room because he was like the glue, right? Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes what you gotta understand is just because the stat sheet doesn't always mean everything. And if that means like if some of these guys they look like they're underperforming, but they're the ones who keep the team together. Like it looks like when you see the get to know your Red Wings for the season, and they're all saying like if the apocalypse happens, who do you want? And everyone says Bernier. I'm like, okay, these guys want to like believe in Bernier, which is a good thing. Because ironically, during the outdoor game there, when Detroit was still a contender for the playoffs, all I can remember is, and my buddy razzed me, save by Bernier, save by Bernier, save by Bernier.
Yeah.
And it's something like, okay, maybe we can get some save by Berniers. And I mean, he's played pretty well. And same thing with Grice when he hasn't. And I mean, that's the other thing is we need to still got to figure out defense, but hopefully when Seider comes, from Europe overseas, that'll change some things because he's probably the best player that's not playing in the NHL right now. And the same thing goes with Veleno's, starting to improve. Like,
yeah.
I haven't quite paid attention as much to the Griffins, so I'm waiting to see if I'm not sure. I know Jared's in the lineup. I just haven't seen him play yet. That's from Truro, and I haven't seen if he's playing or if he's in the East Coast because I know Gregor McLeod has been consistently staying in the A this year versus being sent down to the East Coast, right? So, and that's the thing about people as a Red Wings fan, we're going through Dead Wings 2.0, but we also understand like how Detroit works is we don't when we get a draft pick, it's rare that we send them right to the NHL right away.
Right.
We make them play semi-pro for a year or two to adjust to the pros. And that's I think that's something a lot of these keyboard warrior fans are like. It's just they don't understand that it's a process. It's not like you just jump in the NHL. Like even Zadina had to play pretty much a season in AHL, and he's still doing well. But again, I mean, today's game is different. It's not like you can just hop in. It's rare that someone steps on the ice at the NHL level and takes off. Like those are there are 1% of hockey players realistically make the NHL. And out of that 1%, only 1% probably dominate the league right from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And I know
would agree with you.
And I understand we want someone that we can draft right away and dominate the league, but that's not how Stevie works. And people got to remember, like he took Tampa Bay out of the basement, and we are in the basement, but we're not the deep dwellers of the basement. Fortunately, Buffalo is still the worst team in the league.
Yeah, they always will be.
Well, it's hard to say because they were a good team. They had really strong teams. I mean, yes, Hasek did help, but it's the culture too. I think when you if you don't have a winning culture, like at the front office, then it trickles down to the athletes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that was a great interview. I think that was we spoke for about an hour. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome, because I was thinking it's going to take about an hour because I'm going to grab something to eat and then try out a new road that I saw. And I'm supposed to rest today, but I'm just going to kind of go with the flow.
Right.
Just to not go, I'll probably go hard, but again, I want to find routes. So then when Monday rolls around, I know where to go. And I mean, I took Monday was a day off and Tuesday was kind of an easy day. So I don't mind doing this a little extra mileage just to kind of, again, just to get the, know exactly when I do my workouts tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, I know where to go and it's going to be productive.
Right. Well, I wish you the best of luck and hopefully we see you in Tokyo sometime.
Thank you, Billy.
Great. Take care.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast this week. I hope you enjoyed listening to Ben talk a little bit about himself. If you have any tips you
You can email me at billycole8@outlook.com or maritimedeluxe@gmail.com. Or if you have any story ideas, feedback, whatever it may be. You can follow me on Instagram, billycole_, or the podcast Instagram, which is Maritime Deluxe. And we'll